So hi, my name is Cujo. I'm gonna do another commentary video while I work in between other videos. I was thinking back on the time of being in high school and talking with my friends about it, and we all kind of talked about how meaningless high school was in the grand scheme of things. Like, one of my friends is in college and he was talking about like he had like a 2.8 GPA and he was able to get in completely fine to the college that he's at. And yeah, I guess it depends on what school you end up going to that looks at grades, cares about grades. Like, if it's a big university, it makes sense, or if it's just a community college, they're not going to care as much about GPA. But we talked about how a majority of us had gotten lost in high school, and the school system itself really didn't help individuals find their path, and a lot of it had to do with your development based on your home life. If your home life pointed you in the direction of where you were meant to go, or if you were kind of left to fend for yourself and then have people tell you, yes, you should go to college. College makes the most sense. Go to college. So as a result, I know people who went to school and they've jumped around majors and had to take so many different classes that they're in debt and they still don't have any degree to show for it. So they end up dropping out. They don't get the degree and they're stuck in debt, wondering how they're going to pay off the debt. I have a firm belief, especially with people who come from poverty, that if you go to a formal education, you should go with a mission and intent in mind. If you have the money to spend and you would like to experiment with your education and explore, and you have the money to do that, then that's when I think you should do it. But college, regardless if you decide to go or not to go, I wish that high school counselors would have helped you decide the direction that you wanted to go a bit better. In my experience, I guarantee that there's some good counselors out there who are like asking the right questions, and instead of being like, what job do you want? What college do you want to go to? Anyway, to cut to the chase, I came up with 3 points that I wish that high school counselors would have asked me. These are questions that I think if you're in high school, you should ask yourself to ultimately find out what you want to do with your life after high school. And even if you're not in high school, these are good questions to ask yourself post-graduate, or if you're done with college. These are just good questions to ask yourself at any point in your life. So the first question I had is, what does your ideal routine look like? To me, this is not even something I considered until the job that I'm working now, where the job gave me a lot more freedom mentally to really think about stuff and piece my life together outside of work, and enough consistency to where I could do that. A lot of the jobs that I had in the past were really draining. I would come home, play video games, try to escape my responsibility, and the managers were terrible and would like emotionally abuse me in some of the jobs, and I didn't have the self-worth to put up with it, and yada yada. But now I'm a completely different person, have a fair grasp on the direction I want to go, but the routine that I have is way different than the routine that I used to have. And knowing the routine that I have now, I place so much more importance on the actual routine itself, because it's what makes your life, and people don't really understand this. I think the things that you're doing day to day on a daily basis is going to determine what type of person you are and what direction you go in life. These are things that some of our parents will teach us, but not all of our parents do. So I'm hoping that this video at least puts that into your brain, that your routine is going to make who you are. For an example, I'll use myself. I try to make music every day or work on these videos. I work almost every day except the weekends, and right after work I try to exercise for an hour on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday I'll do yoga for about 30 minutes. So far that's worked for me, but I'm an in-shape person that makes music, makes YouTube videos trying to help people, and I play games when I have free time. When I do have free time, because I value video games and I try to make time for them. But anyway, your routine is actually what makes you the individual that you are. A lot of people don't get a grasp on that, and then they'll end up playing on their phone for a lot of the day. I used to be one of these people. I used to play on my phone and then unrestrict video games, so I used to be a gamer and then a passive scroller. Wasn't much else other than that, but there was other things like what I'm doing now that I wanted to do. So ask yourself, how can I create a routine to be the person that I want to be? And a good book that I recommend is Atomic Habits for this. Just check out that book if you like reading and you have time. It will really help you construct a routine that is meant for the person that you are. Okay, so question 2. Instead of what you do, who would you like to be? What I meant by this question is, I thought of when counselors would ask me, what kind of job do you want? I actually wish that they would not have asked me that, and instead rather asked, what kind of traits do you want, and what kind of individual do you want to be in other people's lives? Because once you develop your character, it doesn't matter what job you have or where you're at in life, that is going to be the consistent, is your character is going to be consistent on how you show up in each and every one of those and your values. So right now, it doesn't really matter what job I end up working. My intention is to show up, try to learn, do the best that I can, leave the job at the job, come home, and then continue on the routine that I have in order to try to add value to the world. But I value being a good family member. I value connecting with others. I value having integrity with myself. I value my health. I value music. I value creating videos to help people. I value having time to meditate. All these other things. To boil it down, I value my relationships, my mental health, and my physical health. And I think providing outlets for people to do the same thing, to value these things, it's up to them. But if you're human like me, these are things that you should value. I'm not gonna force you to or tell you that this is what you should value, but caring about the physical and the mental and the spiritual health will only help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And plus, you can't predict life sometimes. Like, you won't sometimes get in the dream job you want, and you have to work up to the dream job that you want. If you work on your character and you have a consistent character, you'll have the same you across all those jobs, and you'll show up in people's lives the same way consistently, and it will only lead to more and more opportunity instead of just shooting for the one title and then you'd be like an asshole to get there. So yeah, I think hopefully that one makes sense. Instead of what you do, who would you like to be? That was the question. And number 3 that I have, this is the last question I wrote. What do you find meaning in? Which kind of ties into the second question, but one of my favorite books of all time is A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. The guy survived through Auschwitz back in World War II in Germany. He was a philosopher. The entirety of his family ended up dying in the concentration camps, but he carried through a purpose of finishing his manuscript throughout the entirety of being in the concentration camp. So since he had this meaning, he used himself being in the concentration camp as almost like a case study of himself to see how the human spirit does in the face of extreme tragedy. Super interesting book, like probably one of the best philosophy books if you ever want to give it a read. It's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He talks about how the thought of just being with his wife again got him through a majority of the days. He had an opportunity to escape the camp, but he actually stayed in order to help his comrades get through the entirety of being in the camp, which is unbelievable to me. I highly recommend you read Viktor Frankl's book. He pretty much says in the book that a man with any kind of meaning can bear anyhow. If you go through an extreme tragedy and you're suffering for it, if you can place a meaning onto it even, it will help you get through the suffering easily. I guess not easily, but it'll help you get through the suffering a lot easier because you can place meaning onto it. Oh, I have to do this in order to learn XYZ, or it was so I could experience this, and yeah. So if you can find meaning in existing in the world, navigating the world, then you will put yourself through things that you need to put yourself through in order to obtain that meaning. So if you're a high school counselor, this is questions that I recommend you should ask your students. I'm not like a person with a degree or anything like that, so definitely take my advice with a grain of salt, but I like to read a lot. I try to educate myself as much as I can, and I just want to give people the power to live the best lives that they possibly can. But that's all I have for this one. Thank you for watching my video. I'm gonna go play some Resident Evil 4, the remake. I am so excited at the time of recording this. It's about to come out, so probably gonna have it as footage too. I'm gonna bounce, so goodbye now.